In this lecture, we are going to begin our discussion of JavaScript. It's the language that powers the web. Without JavaScript, sites like YouTube, Netflix, or Google wouldn't be where they are today. The world would be completely different. Let's look at what the world would look like without JavaScript. Feel free to follow along with me. Throughout this course, I've been using Chrome as my browser. Under the browser settings, we can altogether disable JavaScript by navigating to Security and Privacy, Site Settings. At the bottom of the page, we can view the settings for JavaScript. By default, most modern browsers will enable JavaScript for all pages. Let's disable this feature. After doing so, nothing's going to happen. In another tab, I have YouTube opened. It's fully functional. I can click on a video to watch it. Let's see what happens if I refresh the page. YouTube is completely broken. We're unable to watch videos without JavaScript. Let's look at another example. The New York Times is another site that relies on JavaScript. If I refresh the page, we're not going to experience the same result as before. Unlike YouTube, the New York Times can be viewed without JavaScript. However, the ads will not work. The ad at the top of the page is gone. There are users who will genuinely disable JavaScript to avoid ads. Let's look at one more example. In my last tab, I have the Gutenberg editor opened. If I refresh the page, watch what happens. WordPress will throw an error at us. The Gutenberg editor heavily relies on JavaScript. As you can see, JavaScript is a powerhouse for the web. Best of all, we can harness this power to enhance the user experience. Initially, JavaScript was introduced as a language for the web. To understand why, let's take a walk down memory lane. Before JavaScript, we had a language like PHP for processing a web page. The relationship between PHP and the browser is simple to understand. The client will send a request to the server for a page. The server will process the request, generate a page, and send a response. We've seen this exact behavior with WordPress. On the front end, we can navigate around the site. As we do so, the page refreshes on every request. This behavior works fine until you run into some common problems. For example, on the header, we have a search form. I may be interested in researching recipes for pizza. If I were to type the word pizza into the search bar without the last letter, the application wouldn't notify me of my typo. To make matters worse, if I were to submit the form, I wouldn't be able to fix my mistake until the page completely loads. I have to wait for the server to respond. Form validation is the most common use case for JavaScript. Let's head back to YouTube. YouTube doesn't have this problem. If I were to perform the same typo, YouTube would recommend a complete list of possible search terms. This behavior is powered by JavaScript. There's an important distinction to make between PHP and JavaScript. PHP runs on the server, not the browser. The moment the page loads in the browser, PHP loses control over the page. We can't insert additional elements. PHP has to wait until a new request is made. On the other hand, JavaScript does run in the browser. It was introduced as a way to add interactivity and logic to the page without sending another request. Unlike PHP, JavaScript has access to the elements and styles of the document. We can move elements around, validate forms, or play media files. If you were to do research, you might come across various use cases for JavaScript. 2 decades ago, JavaScript was aimed at the web. As the years progressed, it's considered a general-purpose language. We can use JavaScript for programming desktop and mobile apps. For this course, we're going to focus solely on web development. Learning a new language is easier the second time around. After all, JavaScript is a programming language. Like most programming languages, concepts like functions, variables, and conditional statements are supported in the language. The syntax is different, but the ideas are the same. You'll be surprised how fast you'll catch up with the language. Let's begin programming with JavaScript in the next lecture.